Hello, I'm Haley Perot, and this is Northwest NEWSWEEK. We now know the identity of the man shot and killed by an OPP officer in Kenora on Tuesday. The small First Nation of Wabauskang near Big Trout Lake has issued a media release confirming the man was a member of that community. He's been identified as 55-year-old Bruce Frog. The father of two daughters was said to be an avid outdoorsman. The chief and council of the First Nation released a statement announcing Frog's sudden passing and offering condolences to the friends and family. There was no reference made to the OPP or the fatal shooting. The province's Special Investigations Unit is probing the incident, which began with Frog lighting a building at Anishinaabe Park on fire and then waving large knives at police officers before he was shot. The Grand Chiefs of NAN and Treaty 3 are calling for full accountability in the SIU probe into Frog's death. A remote First Nation is celebrating the end of its reliance on diesel generators. Sandy Lake is now connected to the province's energy grid, and the community hosted a day-long celebration last weekend to recognize this new stage of their history. Justin Hardy reports.
Sandy Lake First Nation, located about 600 kilometers northwest of Thunder Bay, invited in government officials and other stakeholders to celebrate the recent connection of the community to the province's power grid. The new connection provides much more reliable and less expensive power up from the south through Red Lake. Now that Sandy Lake is fully connected, Chief Dolores Kakagamic says the community can do away with energy priority lists when constructing new projects.
We can now hook up, whatever infrastructure, whatever housing, like in a timely manner rather than waiting 1-2 years. Like I said, we used to hook up house to house and get into trouble for it. But that was the only way to give power to your neighbor if they got a new residence.
Wataynikanayat Power, majority owned by a partnership of 24 First Nations and in partnership with Fortis Inc. and other private investors, is a $1.9 billion project to build and operate the line that brings light. That's an 1,800-kilometer power transmission system that will connect 17 remote First Nations to the Ontario power grid. Margaret Kanekwanash, CEO of Wataynikanayat Power, says that there is still a lot of work to do in terms of transferring assets as well as getting the agreements in place.
And there's some conditions that are included in from Hydro One in terms of being able to connect the communities and connecting them to the grid and energizing them. So we're hoping that the three communities towards Red Lake will be connected in the fall. And the other community, we're possibly targeting first quarter of 2025, I'm thinking.
Sandy Lake is the latest First Nation connected to provincial power through the Wataynikanayat power transmission system. Currently, 16 First Nations assets are energized, and a total of 12 communities are fully connected to the grid. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
It's tradition among some First Nations to hold off on celebrations during the mourning period following a death. For Sandy Lake, this meant putting off the celebration of the Watay power connection for nearly 2 months. Once again, here's Justin Hardy.
Sandy Lake put aside tradition last week in order to finally celebrate their connection to the Wataynikanayat power transmission system, 2 months after it was completed. The community has faced the death of 30 members since the beginning of the year, a massive impact with a population less than 3,500. That includes 6 that occurred outside of the community within the past 2 weeks. Many of the deaths were due to heart attack caused by a variety of different underlying conditions, according to Chief Dolores Kakagamic.
Every one of them had a different ailment, but I'm always told by the medical examiner that when your body's working too hard, your other organs, your heart takes the blunt of it, and most times people, their heart gives out.
Facing the equivalent of 1 death per week can put a tremendous amount of strain on those living in the First Nation. Chief Kakagamic says she's utterly thankful for those in the community that step up to help those who are struggling.
Everything from making wreaths to building the bed where the coffin goes, the digging, the preparing of food. There's a lot of things the community still does that really helps one another in time of grief.
Chief Kakagamic is urging membership to take better care of themselves and hopes the health center will open soon now that the power infrastructure is improved. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
A murder charge has been laid in Wabauskang First Nation. Treaty 3 police responded to a residence on June 21st to find a 34-year-old man from the First Nation in medical distress, and then he was later pronounced dead. The investigation led to the arrest of 33-year-old Sheldon McDonald, also of Wabauskang. The accused has been charged with second-degree murder and remains in custody. McDonald is scheduled to appear in court on July 11th. Dryden OPP are investigating a fatal collision that occurred Wednesday night involving an SUV and a transport. The fiery collision took place at around 9:30 that night on Highway 17 near Jackfish Lake, about 40 kilometers east of Dryden. One person in the SUV was pronounced dead on the scene. The occupants of the transport sustained minor injuries. OPP say a post-mortem will be conducted to determine the identity of the deceased. The highway was closed for over 9 hours and fully reopened at 7 o'clock Thursday morning. After some panic in Wabauskang First Nation earlier this week, MNR officials say a forest fire near the remote community is being listed as being held. Updates on Nipigon Fire 7 can be found on the province's interactive fire map. The blaze is over 200 hectares in size and was burning nearly 30 kilometers west of Wabauskang, also known as Fort Hope. The official cause has not yet been determined. Residents in Wabauskang have little to worry about, according to the Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand, as the forest fire is in a remote location and the weather forecast was in their favor.
No, at 28 kilometers away, the fire remains a fair distance to the northwest of Wabauskang. So it's not under, the community is not under threat at this time. Depending on the wind and fire behavior, it's certainly a possibility that residents of the community could experience some smoke drift and reduced air quality from that fire. But really, it's got quite a distance to go.
Because right now, I think it's under control, like they're controlling it. So as far as I know, that's as much as I can say.
CP Rail is dealing with a train derailment in this region. It happened at around 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon in a remote area east of Kenora. Railway officials say there were no injuries and there's no threat to public safety. Approximately 11 cars carrying intermodule shipping containers were involved. Fortunately, none of the derailed cars were carrying dangerous goods. CP crews were on site working on the cleanup, and the cause of the derailment is under investigation. It's time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll hear about a petition opposing a lithium mine north of Red Lake.
We're looking to have the communities actually build that plan with us, because there may be things that, communities want to have an input on what it might look like at the end of the day.
Over 12,000 people have signed an online petition to show they're against a major lithium mine project being planned near Sandy Lake. The company behind the project says the petition could spur dialogue and offer more avenues to share information and gain input. Justin Hardy has the story.
The petition was started by a Sandy Lake band member. It has amassed over 12,000 signatures, and it calls on Sandy Lake leadership to stop the PAC lithium project. The petition claims that if the project were allowed to start, it would have serious negative consequences on the environment. Clara Lozier is the Director of Sustainability at Frontier Lithium. She says the company is aware of the petition and describes it as another avenue to let people know more about the project and gain input with community members.
We know that community members have strong feelings about mining, as they should. And what we're trying to do is share more information to encourage and spur dialogue, like we're hearing and seeing in the petition. So, our thoughts really are about shaking out what those concerns are and having people be open and share their values and concerns with us.
The planned PAC project will have 2 open pits for mining lithium ore, which Lozier assures is much more environmentally friendly than the conventional lithium brine extraction. Sandy Lake Chief Dolores Kakagamic says the project has its pros and cons, but her biggest concern is if the company will clean up after the mine closes.
We already got burnt a long time ago, especially our elders when the Favorable Lake mine was closed down. I don't know if you've seen it on any pictures in the media. Like, it's just a big yellow blob by Favorable Lake. It was never cleaned up. It looks ugly. And that's the picture people have in their heads, is that's how it's going to look.
Favorable Lake Mine mainly operated in the 1940s, long before many mine regulations were put in place. Now mines are required to have a plan to return their sites to a state that supports the ecosystem the way it had before their projects began.
We are looking to go one step further, and we're looking to have the communities actually build that plan with us, because there may be things that communities want to have an input on what it might look like at the end of the day. Maybe it's the introduction of more native tree species. Maybe it's maybe there's areas where they used to harvest blueberries or medicines that they would like to bring back.
The exploration agreement was signed back in 2016, 2 years before Kakagamic became chief. She says the community needs more information on the project.
We have a pretty good idea of what they're proposing, but the community, every time they say community consultation, it's not really a consultation. It's maybe 1 or 2 people, or nobody shows up, or and then, but this exploration agreement has been in effect for 8 years already.
Justin Hardy, TBT News.
The list of candidates for Wabauskang Nation's next Executive Council election have been released. 3 people are running for NAN Grand Chief, and there are only 3 names on the ballot for the 3 Deputy Grand Chief positions. Alvin Fiddler is running again for the top position, which is a 3-year term. Fiddler served as Grand Chief from 2015 to 2021, and then decided to take on the role again last year after Derek Fox was removed from office. Current Deputy Grand Chief Bobby Narcisse is running against Fiddler. The 3rd candidate is Pauline Mickelson. The Sachigo Lake member is currently on the Lakehead University Board of Governors. The candidates will seek the support of the 49 NAN chiefs at the Kiwewin Conference mid-August. Narcisse is also on the ballot for Deputy Grand Chief, along with current Deputy Chief Anna Betty Echnipaneskam and former NAN Deputy Chief Mike Matetabwaben. It will be up to the NAN chiefs to decide if there will be any acclamations. Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford's newly revamped ministry was officially launched this month. His ministerial title now includes First Nations Economic Reconciliation, along with Indigenous Affairs. Rickford spoke about it during a recent announcement by Premier Doug Ford in Greenstone, where he renewed partnerships with area First Nations.
It's really about a story of meaningful partnerships, building the kinds of relationships that get us to a place and gets the Premier to a place where he decides to rename our portfolio and add First Nations economic reconciliation. And if you unpack what we're doing here today, Premier, how about we just launch the ministry right here, right now?
Rickford's new look portfolio was part of the recent Ontario Cabinet shuffle. His role now includes building relationships with First Nations in the province that the government hopes will allow for better collaboration and cooperation when it comes to development. Rickford says the timing of the announcement just made sense to officially launch the new ministry.
Today is a testament to what we believe, based on the relationships that we're building, that constitutes First Nations economic reconciliation. You heard the chief speak loud and clear today. They want in on these projects, whether it's commercial development, industrial development. They're full partners at the mine. They'll be involved in the supply chain. This plaza site here is going to serve as a central hub to the corridor to prosperity.
Rickford insists forming and maintaining these relationships with First Nations is his ministry's top priority, as the provincial government sets its eyes on further developments in the north. The Northern Ontario School of Medicine has chosen its next president. Dr. Michael Green will be taking over the top job on November 1st. He'll be the second person to helm NOSM since it became a standalone university. Lee Noonan reports.
I'm really excited to be coming back to the north.
Dr. Michael Green has been appointed the next president, vice chancellor, dean, and CEO of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. Green started his career in Moose Factory and up along the James Bay coast, an experience he says had a big impact on him.
You have to find innovative ways to support and rely on yourself when you don't always have access to the things that you would down south. Also, the importance of social determinants of health and the huge impacts on Indigenous peoples of colonization. That's been a big part of my research career.
Green says he's especially excited by NOSM's distributed university model with hubs in Thunder Bay and Sudbury and building on the success of its satellite locations.
Even small places can be really great centers of excellence. So Marathon and Wawa are great examples, right? Two pretty small communities that have been outstanding teaching and clinical experiences for our students. And, how do you bring those together into having more of a presence in medical education and scholarship?
Green is also excited about the significant growth on the horizon for the university with the expansion of class sizes and residencies, as well as the plan to add other medical professions such as midwifery, pharmacy, or rehab to NOSMU's programs.
You want to expand to serve the needs of the north, but you also don't want to do so in a way that is not sustainable. So we just want to make sure that I get a chance to hear from everybody. What are the things that are needed? What are the things that are most important?
Current President Dr. Sarita Verma is stepping down this month, and Green takes the reins on the 1st of November. One issue he'll likely have to work out will be the lease on the NOSMU building here on the Lakehead campus.
I can't imagine NOSMU without a significant presence in Thunder Bay. It's the hub city for Northwest. It's one of the founding cities for the program.
Although Green doesn't start until November, he's planning to tour the campuses with his family this summer. He should be here in Thunder Bay in late July. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
OPP have charged 2 people in Nipigon with drug trafficking after searching a Harkness Street home on Tuesday afternoon. A man and a woman from Nipigon, both aged 31, were arrested after officers found cocaine, crack cocaine, and magic mushrooms, as well as cash. One of the accused has been released with a court date later this summer, while the other was being held in custody pending a court appearance on Friday. It's time now for another short break, but stay tuned as Mattawa high schoolers unveil their latest tiny home projects.
It also shows that collaboration and collective impact is really important to increase housing options, especially in northern communities.
Students in the KZ Lodge program at Hammersholt High School have completed their latest project, which will now be shipped to a Matawa community. The tiny home project is designed to teach students valuable trade skills to set them up for a bright future. Justin Hardy reports.
Students taking part in the KZ Lodge program at Hammersholt High School gave a tour of their most recently completed tiny home. It's the program's second completed structure to be used as housing in a First Nation community. The house completed this school year will be shipped off to Ganugamink First Nation. Bonnie Krizawadi, coordinator for the Thunder Bay Poverty Reduction Strategy, says the work students put in will have a long-lasting impact.
Oh, I mean, it's life-changing for somebody that gains the housing, but it also shows that there are different housing options available in communities as well. It also shows that collaboration and collective impact is really important to increase housing options, especially in northern communities.
With the second tiny home now complete, the program has already started work on a third home. The KZ Lodge students took part in all phases of the construction process, gaining valuable skills. When asked about their favorite parts of the experience, they shared similar sentiments.
My favorite part about building the house is, like where everyone's working together is like putting up the walls and everything and building the inside walls and pretty much like working together as a team.
Like working with my schoolmates and like having experiences with each other that no one wouldn't really have typically in like their high school years.
I say the teamwork and the communication that we built along the way.
After a full year of gaining skills throughout the construction process, students are now set up for a potentially successful future career in the skilled trades. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Officials with Porphy Island Lighthouse have invested in a new transportation method for visitors. The extra-long golf cart with 3 rows of seating is being introduced there this summer. Tourism numbers to the island on Lake Superior have grown over the past few years. Officials say the newest addition will be a great way to keep tourists together and engaged with one another. The Easy Go cart is battery-powered with a carrying capacity of 8 people and a driver. The Lighthouse Group says this is a piece of equipment that is crucial, as the walking distance from their dock to the lighthouse is about 1 kilometer in hike, which can be quite difficult for older people or those with disabilities.
Because we've had an increase of 10 to 15% yearly, we've seen more and more visitors with mobility issues. And so when tourists come to enjoy, or local visitors come to enjoy, we'd like to provide them with a little bit of extra service. And also it's good getting the people mover, and 8 people on it. You can keep them connected and move them up to the lighthouse.
Anyone interested in visiting Porphy Island and the lighthouse can check the Canadian Lighthouses of Lake Superior website for more details. The Ontario Network of Injured Workers is calling for change from the provincial government. A hybrid news conference was held this week, including local officials at the Thunder Bay OPSU office. They're demanding that the age cap on workers' compensation benefits for older injured workers should be scrapped. Nevem Pelt reports.
The Ontario Network of Injured Workers Groups has been raising the issue of the age gap on WSIB benefits for older injured workers for many years. Since 2022, they have met with the Minister of Labour and ministry officials, but the government has failed to make the call for changes to end the age discrimination. Thunder Bay and District Injured Workers Group Treasurer Steve Mantis spoke about the issue.
We have been in touch with both the federal authorities as well as the provincial authorities to address this. And we need to just keep on pushing forward to say, okay, this is not what's supposed to happen. The system was set up to provide compensation as long as the disability lasts. Not to say, oh, now you're old, now you're useless, go away.
The current legislation only permits injured or ill workers to access WSIB loss of earning benefits until the age of 65, or for a maximum of 2 years if they're injured at age 63 or older. It's becoming an increasing problem for workers in Ontario as the amount of people employed beyond age 65 continues to grow.
People are working longer because they need the revenue to survive. And if they are working and they are injured in that time, then they need to be supported. And I think that there have already been enough rulings that have pointed out that it is age discrimination. Government can fix it if it wants to.
According to the Injured Workers Group, from 2012 to 2023, the number of WSIB lost time claims for workers aged 60 to 64 increased by 73%, and for workers 65 plus by 164%. In regards to solving this issue, Mantis shared their direct request to the government.
To remove the limitation on compensation benefits at the age 65, as well as the provision that was put in place to replace the loss of Canada pension benefits, to make sure that that is equal to what actually people would lose through Canada pension.
Nev Van Pelt, TBT News.
That's all for this edition of Northwest News Week. We'll be back next week with more of the top stories from across the region.